WEFUNK. We funk.
That's cool. And then it's also kind of similar, like you're saying, your kayfabe corner, if I'm getting the title right. But that's a really cool. It's really popular as well in podcasts these days. Where Devin, I don't know if you're familiar. We've kind of told you in like past episodes at how popular the like nostalgia world of professional wrestling is, where you get the old wrestlers, managers, writers, and sit down and tell all the stories behind the scene, fucking antics about how fucked up everybody was and how everything came to be and all. How long you been doing that show?
So I started right before COVID. It was basically kind of the same idea as Comics Corner. I would just, before, after, during wrestling shows, interview people. I got like 3 of those in, and then COVID happened. So I'm like, okay, shit, well, there goes that show. But then, Zoom and everything came along. So I was like, oh, okay. And in a way, it was kind of easier. It's easier over Zoom because then you can finally get people on like an off day instead of trying to rush in the middle of a show. Hey, can I get 20 minutes? Sit down. Oh shit! Everyone's walking by. It's loud. Ah, damn. It's kind of nice over Zoom. You know what I mean? You can get them in.
Yeah, for sure. That's what we've actually learned with our podcast. Everybody, especially now, is super used to it. So now, have you pretty much just talked with like local? Because you said that you do some stuff on the local Florida wrestling scene. You like on the indie circuits and all, or? Yeah,
man. Yeah, I help run RPW Wrestling here in Florida. We run in Fort Myers, Ave Maria, all over the place. I'm involved with Tampa Bay Pro Wrestling, Full Throttle Pro Wrestling, ACW.
Nice. All the indie circuit. Now, like, tell the peeps, are we talking like high school gyms? If you've seen the Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler, we got Jimmy Snuka showing up.
I mean, as far as arenas go, man, we're literally wherever we can set up a ring. I mean, nowadays, back in the day, it was a lot of high schools, rec centers, but literally now, like, it's a lot of bars, it's martial arts arenas, it's backyards. It's still to a degree, like, if we can set up the ring, if it makes sense feasibly to, like, we're not greedy. If we can break even,
for sure. Much like comedy, as we can all attest to in the comedy world.
It's harder space wise, but it's the same idea of just like we'll go wherever, man. On Sunday we're at the Buddha Live, which is a bar. Jeff Hardy
Yes, okay. I want to talk about that because you just said Jeff Hardy just performed there, right? Yeah. But he was not wrestling. He was like
I saw the video of this as well.
80s and 90s songs, right?
He was doing Pro Jam stuff. Yeah,
he was doing an acoustic set from Jeff Hardy.
Dude, mind blown. When you told me you were doing like working the Hardy show, I was like, oh, dude, like wrestling. I thought wrestling. Yeah. And then when I saw the video,
me
I was like,
figured wrestling.
No fucking way. And I would have loved it if I would have actually gone and like thought I was like, I'm gonna go see one of the Hardy Boys wrestle. It's like, no way, brother. I'm fucking singing Glycerine by Bush.
Because of that, it led to a show that will have matches. Sunday will be a full event.
Okay. It was like a Rambo Rocky kind of thing. You had to tape his acoustic set to get him in the ring for an actual fucking match.
Oh no, he won't be wrestling. I don't want to false advertise that. He will not be wrestling. WWE exclusive still at the moment. He's under a very exclusive contract. But because of it, the bar saw that like, oh, okay, cool. Fans give a crap about wrestling.
The Buddha Lounge will we'll have you back. All right, nice.
It worked out well.
So that's fun, though. That's fun. And you said you've done backyards. Is that like that was a big thing a while ago? The whole backyard wrestling, and that honestly is how a lot of guys got started. And in today's wrestling age, which kind of we'll talk about maybe, but I don't really follow the contemporary stuff as much. But haven't a lot of like the real famous guys from today? You got like their start as backyard wrestlers, and like not even on the indie circuit, but like on them and their friends doing stunts in their fucking backyard.
We're in that era now, man. We're in that era, and maybe even starting from the last like really 15, 20 years ago era. That's the era now. Is that people are they were fans growing up, and that's what you do with your buddies, whether it's on a trampoline or just simply on grass or whatever. And and then you grow. You find a real school, you get trained, and then. A lot of people have come from there. People that are signed to WWE, AEW, all started, not probably, but a lot of them in the backyard.
Dude, it's so wild to me because, and again, excuse my ignorance, but like my age group, I remember like the late 90s, early 2000s that like you would see, it was like one of the late night videos, because I think like WWF was hype. One of the late night videos, like infomercials, would be like backyard wrestling. Yeah. It'd be like all like right after the bum fights video. You know what I mean?
It was like Girls Gone Wild.
And then I remember it was a big deal of like 2020, and like local news was like backyard wrestling, the new pandemic, dangerous, and people are cutting themselves. And I was just like Look, man, I just fucking saw Stone Cold throw The Rock off of a bridge, or vice versa. I don't know who it was.
Can't
so
get much more violent than Vince McMahon's limo blowing up. But
yes, dude.
I guess we are on WrestleMania weekend, and you're currently involved in the wrestling, in the indie wrestling world. But so I guess that maybe will help your answer a little bit. But what do you think of like the current wrestling world? Because wrestling is far different than it was. I pretty much stopped around the 2000s. There's been a couple seasons.
Liam, because when you say you stopped, like I actually stopped watching like wrestling like my sophomore year of high school, okay? And even then I was like I
was like a fresh sophomore year in college probably.
Let's not forget, because we did say last year at this time, I was just like, dude, it's COVID, all these comics are fucking doing this 4-hour thing of like online streaming, and you were like, what are you fucking nuts? It's WrestleMania, baby. Like,
yeah. By stopped, I mean I still watch the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania every single year, and try to watch as many Raws.
Last year was supposed to be crazy. I was gonna go literally from Tuesday to like Monday and see like 5 shows a day. Like, and that all got canceled.
Yeah, it's turned into a whole festival week, autograph signings and indie shows, and Bruce Pritchard's doing shit. It's turned into a whole.
Everyone,
this year they're back to fans, right? And there's going to be a fan fest of WrestleMania. They're the Hall of Fame awards and the Slammies beforehand, but
the Slammies. Is that what they're called?
They have their award show. You didn't know about the Slammies, bro?
Oh, that's amazing. That's
the most honorable night in sports. But how do you? Back to the contemporary wrestling. Are you wrestling in 2020 compared to 1990? What are your thoughts? Is it all of the acrobatic stuff? Because right now when I watch, and like Devin did bring up a very good point, I still try my best and I still give it a go every year, a couple times a year to watch. But it's just a lot more acrobatic, choreograph based stuff going on, and a lot less in my book just funny gimmicks. The guys don't have crazy characters, and it's just a totally different feel. Especially I was a huge ECW fan that had a lot of like the blood and guts kind of stuff, but even that kind of stuff, like the thumbtack matches and all that stuff, seemed to go a little bit overboard. What are your like ultimate thoughts of the state of professional wrestling in 2020?
So what's good about now in the last few years is that we're finally back to having a lot of alternatives. I understand what you're saying. I think to a degree about WWE. There's alternatives out there now. AEW is now on TNT. If you have streaming services, $9.99 a month, you can get places that will have hours and hours of content. Every week, kind of like a Hulu and whatnot. So. If you're not into WWE per se, try a different flavor of ice cream. Check out AEW. They do have wacky characters. They just did a exploding barbed wire match. They had a little bit of both of that mix. You got Ring of Honor. You got Impact. You got all sorts of companies out there. And if you're an indie fan, like you mentioned before, like stuff like Jersey All Pro, like there's independentwrestling.tv. $10 a month, and there's a show tonight at 8:00. Underground, which is like hardcore wrestling, and then they'll have lighter shows for later on. And so I think right now it's a good time, and I think once we're back.
That's interesting, like just due to the amount of different stuff going on, the amount of promotions available and all that stuff, and amount of stuff to watch. It's a good time. But how about like versus the 90s anyway? Did you like wrestling more in the 90s? Right now, do we feel it's
That's such a hard comparison, Max.
Because for me, I'm a 90s guy. Like for you, like who's your all-time favorite wrestler? Jordan Owens. Give it to me. Lay it down.
I mean, the answer is the greatest of all time is the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels.
Oh, wow. A Shawn Michaels guy. All right.
Yeah, Shawn Michaels, he's the one that had the brother that fell to the rafters dressed like an asshole?
No, damn it, Devin. No, that's Owen Hart.
That's
Owen
like
Hart, the Blue Bomber,
yeah.
right? The Blue Bomber. That was
Blue
his
Blazer.
name.
But that was Shawn Michaels. The whole Montreal screw job thing, Devin, that we talked about. That was Owen's brother. That was Owens. Yes. So like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels are like big rivals, like real off-screen rivals. Actually,
maybe that's why I have them confused.
Yeah, that's why. Like one of my first memories is Shawn defeating Bret for the first time for the title in Mania '96.
Okay, so the Alamo Dome. Shawn Michaels is definitely he's kind of thought of as like the best in-ring wrestler. Like his matches are the best, but he didn't necessarily have the hilarious promos like Stone Cold or like the overall just craze around him like the Hulkster. Because I'm a Hulkster guy, so I still say best wrestler of all time is like 1987 Hulk Hogan.
If you talk about the actual in-ring work, I mean, Hogan was a relatively boring wrestler.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like compared to in-ring work, that's why it's an interesting question because I would say that probably Ric Flair is the best ever, just because of a combination of in-ring and like promos and all that stuff. He kind of does it a little bit better than everybody, but
I'm going to say I was a big Kane fan when I was watching it because he was
Fame last night.
He was he got a slammy?
No, damn it, you're disappointing me so much. There's a difference between a Hall of Fame and a Slammy. A Slammy is like the yearly wrestler of the year.
The Slammy's like getting a Grammy, and the Hall of Fame's like going to the Hall of Fame. I mean, it's
all right.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain it other than it's the Hall of Fame.
Now, was Kane getting into the Hall of Fame, or was Dr. Isaac Yankem getting into the Hall of Fame? Because another one of his characters before he was Kane, Devin, one of his great fucking failed characters was he played an evil dentist named Dr. Isaac Yankem.
Amazing.
And he actually fought Bret Hart.
That's amazing.
I just pieced together the Yankem joke last week. I was like, oh, I get it. I Yankem. I never knew that from 25 years. But and he was also fake Diesel.
Okay, yes. He was also the infamous when there was the lawsuit going on after Diesel and Razor left WWF, and they just put out other two shitheads in their character, kind of exposing the whole business. Which is, I kind of feel like, do you feel like there is there a theory that you would have? I guess one more question I'll get into back before about the '90s and today, wrestling today and all. Do you have a theory as to why wrestling seemed to be a lot more popular in the '90s, or not even seemed to be, but with Hogan and then Stone Cold and just throughout the entire decade, the Monday Night Wars, throughout the whole decade of the '90s, wrestling was super popular.
You kind of made a good point just a second ago when you were talking
about.
Hey,
you just downgraded it from really good to kind of. Let's stick with really good there, but.
No, well, it's a really good point. I don't know if you knew you were making it is what I'm saying, because you mentioned the whole.
It's like Liam.
The whole NWO thing and the whole Diesel and Razor jumping over ship. You're at a different time. You're at a different time where there's not really internet, and we don't know nowadays. Right away. Oh, this dude's contract's up. He's going to the other company.
That's true.
So back then, there was that aura, that mystery of, whoa, Scott Hall's on Nitro? What? Is the WWF invading? And it worked for me as a fan. I was more of a WWF guy. But now I'm tuning into Nitro because I'm thinking the WWF's invading. And Hogan turned evil? Holy shit, Hogan went evil. You don't have that same emotion anymore because everything is so out there. Even the Hall of Fame yesterday, one of my kind of pet peeves about it in a silly way was some of the bad guys were then backstage cutting real nice interviews oh, we're so glad to be here, but then tomorrow on Monday they're gonna be like, we're better than you. It's you didn't do that back in the day. If you were evil, you were through. Now it's we're evil on Monday, but then we'll show you a documentary about how we were nice backstage.
Yeah, they stuck with the kayfabe, as they call it in the biz, but they never broke the character of their gimmick, and they
I'll admit, if I'm a dick, I played a heel at a wrestling show. I'm gonna still kind of be a dick even after the show to anyone around me because I like to stay in that character. Yeah, I hate it when
you're like Daniel Day-Lewis of wrestling.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a real wrestling.
I mean, but Devin, literally, guys that wrestled in the 70s and 80s, they literally spent their entire lives as a Daniel Day-Lewis character actor. Yeah. They never fucking stop acting like the Honky Tonk Man. That guy is still acting like the Honky Tonk Man to this fucking day. He hasn't dropped the gimmick.
Iron Sheik got in trouble because they were found with drugs. But
in Jersey, yeah.
They were mad because they were writing together and they were good guy and bad guy. That's what they were mad at.
Oh, they were pissed off because
I mean, and also they weren't just good guy and bad guy, but it was the guy whose gimmick was being the all-American guy. It was the guy whose gimmick was being the all-American guy and the evil Iranian terrorist, and then they got caught with cocaine and marijuana right outside Giant Stadium. But
peace will find a way, baby. That's a great story.
No, they were mad because it screwed up.
Hey, we made up.
Yeah, if only McMahon would have spun it that way.
Turns out we both love cocaine and weed and hookers. We found a common ground.
But that is a great theory, though, as to why wrestling isn't as popular. I would kind of say, like, in a similar thing with just the times, but as well, I feel that UFC, like, becoming super popular has taken away from a lot of WWF's audience, especially because, like, now we are living in the day where you kind of have to. What's up?
That's died down too a bit. I'd say that was more the case 8 years ago.
But like just in terms of the fact that they have now come out and they don't call it like Wrestling Federation, they call it Wrestling Entertainment. They've pretty much like broken down the wall of it being real or fake, and now there is like a super popular competitive real product. So if like there is, and so now when wrestling they kind of have to go very choreographed. Like there's no reason for them to pretend that it's real, because if you want to see real action, you can watch UFC. So they're kind of pigeonholed into having to pretend like it's fake, you know, and like try to do as best they can with that. However, guys like me still miss the days where like you were holding on to the illusion that the Hulkster really was hulking up and fucking kicking out at the 2.5, you know. But
I'll say this though: do you think out of because here's where I get to know things. Do you think out of any wrestler though, that's like every wrestler, the one who's the biggest that probably went from like the ring to like Hollywood, it has to be The Rock, right? Like no, I can't say anybody else in the wrestling world.
Hogan tried. Andre's a big name because of his size.
Because the Princess Bride, but like he was never making like fucking blockbusters, you know what I mean? He never got a Fast and Furious spin-off movie.
If you page 100 non-wrestling fans, like I think The Rock will easily be the number one guy. Yeah,
I would say he's the only one. Name me one other wrestler.
I mean, it's interesting because I still feel he's definitely the best in Hollywood. And again, this might just show my like blind allegiance how big of a Hulkamaniac I am.
Yeah, Cena's doing really good too. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's definitely The Rock is way bigger in terms of the actual Hollywood. But I'd still say if you asked like a Family Feud style name a professional wrestler, I still say Hulk Hogan is like the number one associated name with wrestling.
Professional wrestler.
No, I know what you mean.
A wrestler that made
in Hollywood for sure. Like The Rock is definitely the biggest in Hollywood, but in the world of professional wrestling, I still say Hogan's name is bigger than the name of The Rock.
I think you also gotta include anyone that's younger than us, man. You ask a 10, 15, 20, 25-year-old? I don't know, man, because The Rock is consistent.
Not till that
done.
I don't care about them. I'm a 90s kid. That's all that matters.
Wait till that Chris Hemsworth movie comes out. They'll be talking Hulkamania.
All three of us have to think younger because you know that's not necessarily true anymore, man.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. That's true. And definitely now with, you know, him being such a major crossover star with the fucking NBC sitcom that we'll get into kind of inspiring this whole damn time.
Man. Reality shows.
He's literally the highest paid fucking actor in Hollywood the last 2 years in a row. Like, that's an amazing accomplishment. And one thing that you brought up that I will say is he never, like you said, he never made a lot of movies outside of Princess Bride. But if Andre did come to Hollywood, like in 1985, you know, or even 1975, and Andre got to Hollywood as opposed to professional wrestling earlier, he might have been a huge star, you know what I mean? Because he was so
I don't know. How
enormous.
Much can you do?
I mean, yeah, that seems pretty typecast.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's fine, but like, you know, in every movie needs a villain, you know what I mean? It's like, how many movies with giants are there? A lot, you know. It's like he would have been a good Thanos or a fucking like. There's lots of roles Andre could play.
Like Kurgan has had.
Dude, if Avengers came out in the '80s, 100% Andre the Giant is Thanos, or at least Groot.
I was thinking the Hulk.
I am Groot.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of characters that. But you're right, though. The Rock is definitely by far and away the most successful crossover kind of guy.
Big F! WEFUNK. We funk.